All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is our second April 2023 call. Really excited to be here with Kathy Vaughan. And we also have someone in the community. We have Heather with us today. So looking forward to having a conversation around coaching supervision. And it's almost been a year. It's actually been 10 months since we started talking about this last June. After spending quite a bit of time last spring doing team coaching supervision training with Peter Hawkins and looking at the 10-eyed model. Certainly in the last year, I know you, Kathy, like myself, have been very active in
Yes.
having a lot of collaborative conversations around coaching supervision. So well, how are you coming to the call today, Kathy? What is your April 2023 sentiments around supervision? I know you're celebrating some milestones as well. So
I
over.
I am. I am. So it is more than 10 months, Jennifer. I think we started talking about this. I feel like we started talking about this in December 2021,
Wow.
even.
Okay.
And then I think it really came on board in our conversations like February or May. Um, February to May. And then of course we did the Peter Hawkins Renewal Associates, which we found really useful as team coaching practitioners. And I think what I'm coming to the call today with a renewed sense of purpose is the value of people being able to confidently go out, do the work that they need to do with teams, and know they have support. So in fact, when we closed off our last cohort last night, that was one of my comments to the participants, that we should, if you're doing this work, you should be building supervision into your offer. You should make it clear to your clients. You should price it in so that it's appreciated and they know up front that you're getting support.
It's so interesting you say that, because I think one of the reflections I had earlier today was just how, in the last year, team coaching, as we were not surprised to see, has really taken off. But so has an understanding and appreciation that if you are coaching complex systems like teams, like large groups, that supervision really becomes a must have. It's not just a nice to have, it really is a space, a sacred space in many respects, to start
Mm,
unpacking all the complexities that are happening in the
yeah,
room. And that's in part in service, a big service to the people that we work with. And so it
sure.
is interesting as we approach today's call. I called it leveraging coaching supervision. We're going to go back to some of the things we were talking about a year ago, but also I think the discourse has also changed in the last year as well. A lot more coaches, a bit more aware of what coaching supervision is, how it can be leveraged, but we also want to continue that conversation. What do
And
you?
Jennifer, if I could just come in here and say one more thing that I've noticed in the conversations is that people are talking a lot about reflective group and reflective practice. And that is also very useful. And we should all have ways of doing that just to keep ourselves in our coaching mindset, right? That core competency. But that alone, without the support of a trained professional supervisor, may not be enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. So to set the context for today, really wanted to first of all take a look back, because this is not our first call on coaching supervision. We've done quite a few now over the last year. We first started off last June talking about our perspective around coaching supervision and why it's important for group and team coaches, which is where we continue to specialize. We also have looked at, some of the things that we do in coaching supervision, metaphors. We have a demo where I got to supervise Kathy on a team coaching engagement she was working on. And we've been continuing to really differentiate between mentor coaching and coaching supervision. So, as someone who's been a mentor coach since 2007, I've done a lot of years of discussion in helping coaches do their best work. And I think it's really important as our profession continues to evolve to distinguish between, the real focus in mentor coaching on skill development and then the developmental practice of supervision. So, if you're interested today, we're not going to dive into a lot of those, but you can certainly check out the Effective Group Coach YouTube channel. You'll see lots of videos there, and you're more than welcome to explore our supervision channel, as it's called. Kathy and I have been running a coaching supervision group for more than 6 months now. And I think it's a lot of fun, right? It really brings together amazing practitioners, an opportunity to look at creating the pause, as well as looking at certain topics. So Kathy, recently, if I may share, you brought in like some work around clean language, which was so valuable, whether we're thinking
Mhm.
about it in the lens of looking at it one-on-one, whether we're looking at it through a group lens or a team lens as well. So feel free. We've actually got a new cohort starting on Monday at 9 a.m. I'll be leading that cohort for the next 6 months. We'll be meeting Mondays monthly from 9 until 10:30 a.m. And we're going to be going through coaching supervision together. So exploring cases, exploring different ideas that are important, and hopefully create that pause for you to look at what's happening in your world as a coach. So join us. You can scan the QR code. That's going to be the fastest way to get to registration. And then Kathy and I are continuing a Thursday group. So just to, some of you might know that we do a Thursday group. That group actually meets on Thursdays, the first Thursday of every month from 12 to 1:30 Eastern. And it is an open enrollment group. We've actually made it a group that's sort of rolling. And so please feel free to join us. We can get you prepared and get you online, but you don't have to wait for a new Thursday group to start. That is an open enrollment group. Anything you want to say, Kathy, about the coaching supervision group? Because I think you're having as much fun as I am, it appears, in our time together.
Yeah. Well, what I've really appreciated is that, this is also a reflection on the coaching supervision that I've been doing, is that when people are ready for supervision and they come understanding and curious about it, they get so much more out of it. So that, we talk about coachability at times, but I think there's something also about preparing people for supervision so that they can get the most out of it. And that's been really fun because we've done, every time we meet, we do something different.
Yeah. And
Right?
that experience in our group has actually inspired me to sort of pull together what I pulled together for today, just to give that lens of what's possible, right? Like that's the beauty of supervision like coaching. It's an organically co-created space together where I think a lot of coaches, at least the ones that I work with, are still questioning like, how can I leverage supervision? What happens in it? What do we do? And so we want to continue to draw back some of the curtain on that. Today, I'm excited, Heather, not to put you on the spot, but you're with us live. What brought you to today's call? What led you to say, hey, I want to join Jennifer and Kathy for lunch?
So thanks for having me. Yeah, because I am a coach and I will now work for a coach. Well, I've been working for a coaching platform going on 2 years, and they're bringing in team coaching. And I want to do team coaching and I want to do it right. I'm going right now for my PCC. So I've been in one-on-one, but I want to move into team. My background is corporate. I was in corporate for almost 30 years. So I'm in corporate, I was in learning and development. So I already was training teams, but the difference is how do I coach them now, right? And then how do I show up for them to bring out their best? So I feel like I'm on ground zero. So coaching supervision, what I'm understanding is me being supervised to be a good coach for teams, which is what I need anyway for the ACTC, right?
You got it. So thank you for bringing us there, because I think the inspiration for a lot of coaches right now is, well, why should I look at this? And there's a requirement. So for those that are working towards their ACTC, there's a minimum of 5-hour requirement of coaching supervision. And that is, again, as we've sort of made sort of diving into, it's a space for you to start reflecting on what's happening with the teams that you're working with. How as well might your skills need to adjust and get reframed as you move from a one-on-one or a group into a team realm as well. So, here at Potentials Realized, we continue to offer group and team coaching. It's all we've done since 2006 when I first started offering group coaching essentials. You've probably read me before you've met me. So as many of you know, I wrote the world's first book on group coaching, effective group coaching, more than 12 years ago. This summer, we're actually going to be celebrating the 10th anniversary of the release of From One to Many, best practices for group and team coaching. And as a coach, trainer, and practitioner, I continue to be amazed by this work, whether it's coaches that I get to work with and I'm supporting, or whether it's my own work with teams, because it really has that transformational energy and impact. I was sharing with our team here at Potentials Realize that I got a call late Friday afternoon from a team that I'd worked with a couple of weeks ago. And the work that we did really ignited a spark for them to really take a much deeper dive into what they were planning for this spring. And even in a few short weeks, pretty amazing to hear how that spark is really changing their trajectory. Here at Potentials Realize, we continue to offer coach training based on not only the fundamentals and the essentials of team coaching and group coaching, but also those things that you need as a team coach to become more fluid. Whether we're coming in like Heather shared, with many, many decades of experience working in organizations, supporting teams, what else do we need? Part of that is looking at who we are. So looking at our superpowers, it's also getting more aware of who's in the teams that we're working with. How do we co-coach together? And how do we also ensure that we are looking at how learning, motivation, and teaming happens from an empirical scientific standpoint? And I'm really excited later this week to be launching our first cohort of the neuroscience program, as we're calling it. It's really the neuroscience of group and team coaching. And that for me gets to weave together, more than through 30 years myself of working as a team coach, as a group facilitator, and also with my background in cognitive psychology, originally from McGill in the late 80s, where I wasn't sure back then where my background in cognitive psych was going to take me, but it's really neat to see that full circle today. So today's focus is going to be more on supervision, whether you're new to this or like Heather, like thinking, ooh, this is really something I need. We hope that this is going to be useful. And Kathy, I know you do a lot of work within EMCC. A lot of your work is out of Europe. Do you want to talk a little bit about distinctions, what you've seen EMCC versus ICF? Because I think this is often a question we get as well. What's a requirement and how do the two institutions hold it differently?
Okay, so I will share briefly what I understand, and it comes from my application. So I also, in addition to being a PCC, I hold a senior practitioner at the individual level. And when I did that, I had to fill out, some paperwork, but it was more reflective, right? What did you take and why? And less document heavy than it was with ICF. And they asked me to document what kind of supervision I had done and also to have someone sign off on it, that the supervisor actually had to sign off that I had done it. But it was the idea of it. They saw the application as a developmental process. So for them, supervision has been a requirement for quite a long time. And I think they look, their process is much more around the development goals than perhaps the ICF, which seems to be more on the standards compliance end, if that's fair to say. I also want to say there's another organization that's been growing as well, the Association of Coaching, which just launched its team coaching framework. So does EMCC have its team coaching framework, and they also require supervision. So everyone's recognizing it as good practice. For ICF, it's currently only at the level of team coaching, not at the individual or any other type of coaching.
And so I think, as the field expands, so does the need to discern, right? What kind of supervisor are you looking for? And one thing we just want to really draw clear is, our specialization is really for coaches who are working that team coaching realm and the group coaching realm. I do supervise a few coaches that work one-on-one and specifically one-on-one, but I know that even for me, my sweet spot really is in expanding that lens and how our coaches, what are the issues coaches are facing in the realm of coaching many. So supervision, also a requirement to check, and this is for those working to the ACTC, the Advanced Credential in Team Coaching. There are specific requirements of who a supervisor needs to be. So not anyone can say, hey, I'll supervise you. We need to have a certain level of training. And ICF has said if the coach does, or the coach supervisor does not bring at least a minimum of 60 hours of coaching supervision training, they also have to bring at least 120 hours of mentor coaching support. So just check that out, do your due diligence. And I think, you want to also make sure if you're working to that ACTC, that you have a good understanding of what the entire requirements are. We also have done lots of calls on this in the last 6 months. So feel free to book a call with one of us, to talk about your own individual pathway. And as we get closer to International Coaching Week in a few weeks, we'll be doing some special work, because I think part of where coaches are at right now is like, how do we just start making things happen, right? It's like, I've got all this information, but now I need to put it into action. So we will share more about that with you in the coming weeks as we move to International Coaching Week. As Kathy said, there's really three main reasons why supervision is valuable. It can be restorative, so it can help us really renew. Certainly as we work with teams, it's so critical that we find these pause points to start unpacking what is going on, because the complexity is real. The complexity is immense. And as a supervisor, we may also want to recognize that part of this is about helping people get the resources they need. It's about the formation of the coach. We can't be experts at all things. And this is why I really appreciate running coaching supervision groups, because even in my work with expertise in certain areas, I do not bring expertise in everything. But collectively in a group, we can really help each other become aware of resources that can help us in the myriad of coaching conversations that we have. A third function of supervision is to make sure that we're also staying within what is coaching, right? I think I continue to see and hear, and even in my own work, recognize that it's not always firm boundaries. We move through a lot of gradients in our work. And so from a normative standpoint, how are we also coming back to the core of what coaching is and what it means to provide best practice to our clients, in service to our clients? So Kathy, I'm curious for you, where do you find you spend a lot of time as a supervisor? What are people coming to supervision for in a very
wow. I've had a broad strokes, not revealing any confidentiality. I've had people who've come to supervision where maybe they got feedback from a client conversation or an evaluation, and they wanted to just kind of think through how they felt about it, but also think about did they miss something? Was there something else they could have done? And just, providing that space and container to really explore maybe the relationship, maybe certain conversations, in service of them, closing off the relationship that was, and feeling that they had done their best. And if there was something to learn, that they had learned it. So supporting that. Also with people working with teams where maybe, and Jennifer, we work with teams, a lot of leaders don't want to participate in the team coaching. And so how do you as a coach have this exciting client, exciting team to work with, but you have a challenge with the leader, and their willingness to participate, and helping the coaches really reflect ethically on what is the impact of them having a leader who doesn't want to be part of it, or is not actively participating. And then of course, co-coaching, which I know you should talk about, because that's your next course as well. But we know that co-coaching is a best practice. We have put in proposals in co-coaching. We demonstrate it in our training. So yeah, you want to talk a little bit about your upcoming course?
Yeah, well, co-coaching is an inherent part of this work, right? Unless we're with micro teams that are very small, continued best practice is really having two coaches work with that team system. The value of that, of course, pretty apparent, right? We bring two sets of ears, two sets of eyes, two different perspectives, two different voices. And in the diversity that exists within teams, that can be an incredibly, I think, validating experience for team members, as well as grounding experience for team members. I've been co-coaching for many, many years. And when I went to do research for both effective group coaching and also for From One to Many, my first two books, I asked coaching clients, teams, and leaders, what was the value of having two coaches working with you? And things that we take as current best practice came up as part of that, that response. Things like it was incredibly valuable to see two people working together at the front of a room with very different styles. Or it was really incredible to see two people working through conflict and differences of opinion in a way that was constructive, not explosive. And I think that
Yes.
points to, I have to say that probably points to the type of team coaching work that I've typically been engaged for, right? It's not the easy, oh, this is a team that's starting off. Often I'm with the teams that are really struggling. They haven't found that way to work across their differences in a way that harnesses the capabilities. Rather, it's been, a big schism, something that's gotten in the way of their ability to celebrate and to really leverage all that they have at their availability. Because we know that diversity equals strength, right? And if you've seen
Yep.
my latest TED Talk, which is called Coaching Teams Through Chaos, that's one of the main taglines, right? Out of 3 decades of working with teams all over the world, it's not just the research that says that teams that are diverse excel. Practically, it's when we have different people in the room, where we have differences of opinions, where we have different vantage points and different professional backgrounds, that teams can really start to rev their engines. But that's a different type of conversation as well. So again, not to go too far off course, but to bring it back to practicalities, part of our training now involves a course called Co-Coaching Essentials to really help coaches figure out what makes co-coaching work for them and what do they need to dial up and dial back in their relationships with others. So this is based on experiences that worked well and experiences that didn't work well as a coach, as a practitioner, where,
Yep.
my first book came out, there was a chapter on co-coaching, and a few weeks later, I found myself with a colleague and a co-coach where our work was literally ready to come off the rails. And we were thousands of miles away from where our home base was. And we had to figure out, how did we bring this on board in service to the client? Not necessarily in service to our relationship, because that was pretty much decimated, but in service to the client. How did we find a way to work through those differences? And I have to say, like any difficult moments, that was not easy, but it really informed my practice, my research, the coach training that we do here at Potentials Realized. And as some of you know, a big part of my creative project in 2022, last year, was bringing to life the Group and Team Coaching Superpowers quiz, which now underpins not only the Activate Your Group and Team Coaching Superpower program, but also feeds into the Co-Coaching Essentials, because we really need to know ourselves. We need to understand our presence, how we're showing up, what is our strength, and also what are our shadow sides in order to be a masterful co-coach. And that holds true for groups and teams, where you're going to find co-coaching really being part of the way we work. So thanks for asking, Kathy. I know I went a bit off on that, but anything you want to do to bring it
No,
back?
but Jennifer, when we were launching our open group coaching supervision, and I mentioned to someone that we were doing it as a pair of supervisors, what that individual told me is that's best practice. That's the future. And I think the future also is where co-coaches will be receiving supervision to help them get better and explore how they're working together in their work. And we look at the new team advanced certification team coaching changes. I would imagine that observations of team coaches and co-coaches will be important, especially if you're working with larger teams.
Absolutely. The whole change and professionalization of this realm. So if you have not really been keeping abreast with the new advanced credential in team coaching, definitely book a call with us, right? We are more than happy. I shared that QR code earlier. Again, we've talked today a little bit about, the purpose of supervision. It can be ethical, it can be about resourcing, and it can be developmental, but you don't have to do it alone. And I think, we can really have a lot of fun in this. Kathy and I talked in an earlier call, and I brought this back and added on to it on some of the tools that we use in supervision, right? And so we won't speak to all of these, but certainly some of the ones that I've had the most fun with, and I've appreciated that I can continue to bring it in, is working with metaphors and visuals, right? Like so much of my work globally has been with groups that are multilingual. And so how do we use imagery in a way to create a common connection without necessarily even being able to speak the same language? And that's a reality in today's world. And so how do we leverage metaphor, visual metaphor, imagery in a way that actually creates connection and new awareness, new learning together across boundaries and across distance? What's one of the favorite things you've been doing with supervision, Kathy?
Well, creative expression. So the other day I was doing a supervision session where we had agreed we'd look at the 7-eyed model. I actually used playing cards to explain the 10-eyed model. So, finding different ways, because it's that tactile bit, right? It's not just looking at it and looking at it online. It is useful to have a visual, but to have, to explain it. And so I was explaining it and I was doing it and then they were doing it. And then we were like, started looking at how does this represent the system that they're working in, and adding a few more cards. That's a technique I picked up from Jillian Walters, which I really enjoy. Actually, I really enjoy doing that. So so taking some more traditional pieces and adding something creative to it.
And that's a wonderful way, right? It's looking at, really bringing it into the tactile and somatic realm,
Yep.
that experiential space, etc. And that really, to me, I think is the next layer, right? It's like, how do we move beyond just the one layer of the verbal realm of coaching into the multisensory realm? And I mentioned a little while ago, again, the neuroscience course is going to be looking at that. How do we help coaches build out their toolkit, not only in the scientific realm, but in the experiential realm? What can you be doing and tweaking to make sure that you're really creating those multisensory experiences for your clients? Because as great as the virtual realm is and bringing people together, it's created a unidimensional experience for a lot of clients and coaches. And so how do we break out of those bonds again? So I'm getting aware of the fact that we're coming close to the end of our call, Kathy. As we start to wrap up, what do you think is important that we might not have touched on today? Is there anything else that you think is important for coaches to consider, or even supervisors who might be watching this to be thinking about and looking ahead at?
Well, there's one thing that's important, I think, for people who are considering using supervision with us is that we really do walk the talk. We have our own supervisors. We have invested in our development as supervisors, and we keep up to date with what's happening. The second is to really come and have that conversation of what could supervision do for you, because there might be many different things in a simple singular client relationship, but there's also a more macro level of something that you just notice that you're not feeling as attuned to as you'd like. Something's different. Everything's confidential. We only record the number of hours because you may need that for the future.
And note that you may work with different supervisors on different topics. In the last year, I've worked with 2 different supervisors. I have a team coaching supervisor who really I work with on that level. And I'm just wrapping up, after more than a year of learning, a diploma in coaching supervision. I've had a separate coaching supervisor, and I've loved the diversity of just the different things that we've done, the different places that I get to go to as a coach practitioner in those different relationships. So, you know, and another key learning that I just want to share, because this was sort of my like, of a whole year of learning, was that supervision is a, you know, it's a spacious space. And I was really amazed that, you know, rather than meeting with a supervisor like every week or bi-weekly, I only meet with my supervisors once a month, which is a different rhythm and a different pace. And in today's highly charged world, especially if you're working with teams, teams on the front line, teams in the backdrop, like teams, the world of teams is always very fast. And typically it needed to happen yesterday. Well, there's a real different energetic field when you get into supervision. And so it's an interesting space of tension to really explore, especially for those of us that are team coaches, often brought in to help a team create more results. Often we're focusing on their relationships, of course, and yet the pace can be crazy. It can really be fast and furious. So hopefully you will enjoy your opportunities and what you create with your supervisors, whether that's one-on-one or in group, but there's a real opportunity to start dialing it back in terms of the pacing.
Yep.
So, Kathy, final comments from you.
I really am just going to encourage everyone to reach out, be curious, look at what it can do for you. If you've gone through the ICF initial credentialing, right, for either ACC or PCC, you've done mentor coaching. You've perhaps even done it with us. Coaching supervision is different in that we don't focus on the competencies alone. We focus overall on you, the team coach, or you, the coach, or you, the group coach, and how you're showing up and how you're experiencing your client, and then looking through the different aspects and perspectives of that relationship. So it is quite different than focusing on the competencies. And that may also give more flexibility to the space that you're talking to, Jennifer.
Absolutely. Well, whether you've been with us live, like Heather has been today, thank you for joining us. Or I know so many people now really come to these calls, you know, asynchronously. Just know that our spring schedule is out. And so our next call will be at the beginning of May. We'll have 2 calls in May, 2 in June, 2 in July, and then we will have 1 in August before resuming our semi-monthly or twice a week, bi-weekly, as I would call it, every 2 weeks calls here in September. Just want to plant the seed though, because as the world continues to evolve, we're going to be doing a special hybrid program with people in person here north of Toronto, Canada, in July. That's going to be a 1-day program on Wednesday, July the 12th. We're going to be exploring some of the topics that we touched on today: superpowers, growing your business, getting clear and connected with others. We're also going to be offering this as a hybrid because we recognize that so much of our network is global. And so as much as we'll be doing things in the room, we'll also have one of our teams, Rita, who will be working on creating a similar hybrid experience. So you'll get to see what's happening in the room, but when we go to have in-person conversations, you will have hybrid conversations with other virtual participants. We've just started creating some more information about this special 1-day program on July 12th. It will happen again north of Toronto, and it will be 2 weeks before another in-person program that I'm bringing back this summer, which of course is the Group and Team Coaching Intensive, a 2-day program I've offered since 2010. And I really have to say, it's a fun one. If you can join me July 25th and 26th up in beautiful Muskoka, Canada, up in Bracebridge, please make the trip. We're going to be diving into group coaching and team coaching techniques. You'll have an opportunity to practice and get some feedback as well, which is critical in this work. So with that, Kathy, thank you as always for being here.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And we hope to have a call with you soon. You can always reach out. You would get the QR codes earlier, or just my Calendly link is calendly.com/Jen Britton, JENN BRITTON. And Kathy, do you want to give your fast one? And I know we have a long one. Would you have a fast link?
No, it's the same with the team-coaching-essentials.
Perfect. So that's calendly.com/potentials realized, I think, /team-coaching-essentials. We'll get a QR code made for that because it's much easier for people. But thank you. And we're back in a couple of weeks for our next call. Have a good one, everyone. Take care. And thanks
Bye-bye.
again for joining us. Bye.